the winner of the straw poll with 85%, Donald J. Trump.
Political arena and fighting for the conservative cause.
It's an area I care deeply about, have since my time as mayor.
Gavin Newsom sides with California Republicans. Also, COVID-era policies are still around, but there's an interesting wrinkle of what's happening in the fall. And Turning Point has an action conference in West Palm Beach, and the straw poll actually might surprise you, except for the one on the top. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
One.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob. That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Monday, July 17th, year of our Lord 2023. Fascinating things happening over the weekend. There was an article, and we'll probably, we'll start with that one first, in Axios, talking about all of the COVID-era policies that are still in existence, and it will shock you. But also what will shock you is Gavin Newsom siding with California Republicans, and correctly so. But is it a political play? We'll get to that in a second, because I want to get to this first. I thought this was freaking fascinating. Did you know how many COVID-era policies are still in existence? Let me tell you about a conversation I had just briefly on Friday. I was talking with, we'll keep it vague, a friend of mine who works at a place and deals with employers trying to employ people. And I asked, hey, what is going on the ground level of businesses? And you might know this, and let me know in the comment section what you think here, if it's difficult to hire employees. I said, everybody's having struggles, everybody's having difficulty hiring people, but in your instance, is it difficult finding skilled positions, or what's the deal? He said, it's not just skilled positions. We can't even find people to clean the bathroom. Entry-level positions, we cannot find people to do them. My thought, of course, and the thought of everybody constantly is, how is that happening? It doesn't make sense. With inflation up, the economy still moving forward, and still we have a huge percentage of the labor force just out of work. How is that happening? Well, I think in so many ways it gets explained by what is going on the COVID era policy things. There are so many things that I didn't know was happening that I found out about in an Axios article that it talked about this. Life is about to get much more expensive for millions of American families. These are the COVID era policies that are still in existence that I did not know were still a thing. I knew student loan payments were still on hold as the Biden administration unconstitutionally said that they were going to eliminate debt and all that sort of stuff, which of course was never going to happen. I knew that. So repayments for that starts, I believe, in September or October at the end of the year. In the fall at some point. Student loan payments will come due again in October for the first time in 3 years. It's been 3 years. What else has been happening over the course of 3 years? And this would possibly illuminate some of the confusion myself and my friend and several business owners are having about how come we can't find people to work, is this. Scores of Americans will soon be facing bigger bills. I can skip this part. Did you know that there are still child tax credits being sent out to parents? I didn't know this. I didn't know that this was still a thing. Gosh dang it. I got on this big tirade and now I can't find where I am with this in this stupid. All right. Pandemic era funding for childcare will expire almost simultaneously and will project that millions of children will lose, quote unquote, access to care. Now, the verbiage here is difficult, but parents are still getting child payments for having kids, their quote unquote tax credit, as well as government subsidized funding for various childcare programs. I didn't know that was happening. And if you're a parent that has a kid and you're getting government subsidies due to COVID a long time ago, yeah, you would have to make less money in order to sustain your family going forward. Therefore, you probably wouldn't be as encouraged to look for a job, which would explain the massive amount of people that are not working and are just out of the labor force that don't get calculated into the unemployment factor, and all of the impossible to fill jobs. But this is the one that I think is the biggest component. Axios says this: work requirements for food stamps will also come back into effect this fall. What? Those were gone? I know there was a big scuffle over this in the budgetary meetings in Congress. What was that? Probably March of this year. The bipartisan budget bill, that Joe Biden says he won and Kevin McCarthy says he won. All this whole ordeal about work requirements for food stamps. Yes, that was a big deal back then, and they expanded it just a little bit. I think it should be expanded vastly. If you're going to take money from the government in terms of in food stamps or in any government subsidies, you can't just not work. You have to have some sort of, I'm looking for work, I'm in school, or this or that or the other thing. There's so many caveats to get government money, right? That I'm a proponent of much more. You have to prove to the government much more before you can just take government money. But I didn't know this, and I'm curious in the comment section, did you all know this? That work requirements for food stamps have been suspended pretty much entirely since the beginning of COVID. Yeah, that would explain the confusing conversation that I have with this friend of, we can't find people to do any jobs whatsoever. Those jobs were filled before the pandemic, and now we can't find any person to do that. Well, because since COVID, and again, I didn't know, maybe I should have known this, but I didn't know this. Work requirements for food stamps have not been in effect the entire time. And so Axios says this. Let me just get to the numbers because I don't necessarily buy these numbers, but, well, here's this. Axios says that this will likely cost 500,000 people to lose food assistance, and a recent debt ceiling agreement will expand work requirements to put another 750,000 people at risk. So 1.2 million people apparently are just not required to show that they are looking for work or want work. Now, is that a huge percentage of the population? No, but I would be willing to argue or want to argue that the requirement expansion should expand to a whole heck of a lot more people. I think the number of not working, and this is not unemployment, this is why the unemployment number is stupid. The number of workforce age and ability Americans not working is around 80 million. Some numbers I think suggest around 100 million, but that is a huge percentage of the population. Working age adults who are not working. Now, those people do not get factored into the unemployment number. I've been saying this for years. The unemployment number is stupid because after 6 months of looking for a job, you fall out of unemployment in terms of being counted. So when people say, and when Donald Trump said it, when the Biden administration said it, when George Bush said it, when Obama said it, anybody who claims good unemployment numbers, the unemployment number is completely and solely insignificant when it comes to actually understanding the workforce in the United States of America. So there's that. When people are touting, well, there's such low unemployment under Joe Biden, or even when they said it under Donald Trump, the number's stupid. Workforce participation rate is a real thing. Now, let me argue against myself there. I think there's also a big movement for mothers not going back to work once they have a kid. I'm in this position right now. My wife assumes that she'll go back to work, but we have no idea, and she might not, and it might be better for us that she does not go back to work. I'm kind of leaning on that side, if I'm being honest with you. At that point, she would be a working-age American adult that is not in the labor force. So what I think I'm getting at ultimately is that all of these statistics are difficult to nail down what is actually happening. But when it comes to why people and employees and offices and restaurants and this, that, and the other thing, all of these jobs that existed and were filled before the pandemic, the reason why you're getting paid $20 an hour to work a drive-through is because, at least in part, because work requirements for food stamps has not been a thing. Crazy. Also this, and these are a couple of the other things that are being removed. States will also continue to trim their Medicaid rolls, removing people who were enrolled during the pandemic but are no longer eligible. Most states began this process during the summer. So a bunch of people were enrolled in their government health care, which is just worse health care for more people. And then because the pandemic is now over, they have fallen out of eligibility. But the bottom line is this: there are a ton of policies that are ending. There's the student loan stuff, the child tax credit stuff, the work requirement for food stamps, the Medicaid stuff, the Medicare stuff. Holy cow, there's a lot of stuff going away in the fall. Now, I think that's a good thing. I think this stuff should have been taken away a long time ago. And that's not because I want people to suffer. No, because I think the government involving itself in more aspects of American life is a bad thing for everybody. Having said that, the difficulty with all of this sort of stuff is that Joe Biden gets to now run on this stuff. Well, I'm trying to preserve more money going to families and preserve this, that, and the other thing. And all of it is bad from a standpoint of trying to get him out of the Oval Office and trying to get Democrats out of power in general, or lefties that want to turn America into more of a socialist state. So I guess the good news is that a lot of the stuff is finally going away. The bad news is they're going to be able to run on it. I think Obama probably understood this better than anybody. There's no such thing as getting rid of a government subsidy. He wanted to push through Obamacare because he knew once some people had it, him and his party could run forever on, you're trying to take away healthcare. Notice how, and this is again just one of the examples, how even Donald Trump ran on repeal and replace Obamacare. Whereas you get people like me saying, no, just repeal the thing. It's not working. It's bad for literally everybody. And we don't need to get into the nuances of why it's bad for everybody. But why do we have to replace? Why do we always have to replace? One of the biggest strategies for the left side of the American political system is just get it in, and then we'll say when it expires or when it goes away, we will say that it's the other side's fault. I'm like quasi writing a book called It's Only Temporary, just because I think this sort of stuff, policy stuff, is fascinating. It's only temporary. There is nothing more permanent than a temporary government system, structure, subsidy. Anyways, all right, so there's that. I'm so curious to see how that plays out, especially in the American political system. But COVID-era policies are finally freaking going away. Policies that I did not know were still here. I want to get to this. Shoot, I want to play Gavin Newsom's thing, and then maybe I'll maybe I will read some of the comments and see what we can get to. But this is fascinating. This is coming out of California. We haven't really talked about this SB 14 thing here. I am so curious what is going on behind the scenes. Let me set this up for you really quick. SB 14 was a bill passed, not unanimously, I don't think. I think there was a couple of abstentions and probably a couple no votes because people are dumb. Scott Wiener, I think, is a senator from California, probably voted against it because he is a crazy person. Anyways, sorry, SB 14 is a bill that would criminalize at a higher level child trafficking, human trafficking in general. Yeah, you're like, what? That wasn't already a thing? But yeah, child trafficking was not a serious crime. This would have made it a serious felony that would count towards California's 3-strike policy. If you get caught trafficking children, 3 times, I would say it should be a one-time thing, but if you get caught trafficking children 3 times, you could face 25 years to life in the state of California. They're trying to make trafficking minors a serious felony. Who doesn't agree with that? Even, well, the most lunatics of Democrats or liberals or leftists would say, yeah, we probably shouldn't traffic children. That's probably a good idea. And yet, even though it passed the supermajority Democrat state Senate, it got held up in the state assembly's committee, which is crazy to a lot of us. But on last Tuesday, the committee, comprised of mostly Democrats, voted to stop the bill, saying effectively, we don't want trafficking children to be a serious felony. That happened on Tuesday. This clip that I'm about to show you is Gavin Newsom talking about it being stopped in the Assembly committee on Wednesday. And then there's an update to the story that happened on Thursday that I think is kind of interesting, but also I'm skeptical because I'm a political cynic. Watch this clip of Gavin Newsom agreeing with a Republican-led, Republican author, and Republican-backed bill in the state of California.
Yeah, it died, in the assembly. It did die. I talked to Senator Grove about it this morning, which is indicative of my desire to see what we can do. Yeah, and I want to say nothing more than that because I want to understand exactly what happened yesterday. I didn't have the privilege, was with you and doing other things yesterday, of watching that assembly hearing, but I was well aware that it went through, I think, overwhelmingly through the Senate. So I was surprised by that. It's an area I care deeply about, have since my time as mayor, as a supervisor, working with then District Attorney Kamala Harris. We put a few, $25 additional million in the budget last year in this space, and I take it very seriously. So I appreciate Shannon Grove's efforts on this, and wanted to make sure she knew that today. And we'll be following up, and we'll have more to say about that very shortly.
Okay. A lot of stuff going on here. So that happened on Wednesday after the Democrat-led Assembly committee killed the bill that would make trafficking minors a serious felony. On Thursday, however, Gavin Newsom stepped in and revived the bill. It now has to pass through a House Assembly Appropriations Committee, and then will hopefully, according to Gavin Newsom, be on the floor of the Assembly to get voted. He will sign it into law if that were to happen. SB 14 is authored by Republican State Senator Shannon Grove, would make child trafficking a serious felony in California. I just said that. Anyone convicted of at least 3 serious felonies faces their okay, I'm just restating this. Sorry about that. I thought I had I'm not good at organizing the articles that we read here. But the bottom line is Gavin Newsom revived the bill to ensure that it were to get a vote on the Assembly floor, at least probably. Now, there's an old saying, metaphor: if you're calling your dog and he's not coming, and you keep calling and he's not coming, and you keep calling, and finally the dog comes to you, you're irritated that he didn't come the first 20 times you called him, but the last thing you want to do is hit the dog on the nose. Well, don't hit your dog regardless, but the last thing you want to do is bash somebody for finally coming to your side, at least on one particular issue. So in some ways, I don't want to be too critical of Gavin Newsom, because he's siding on a thing that is objectively a good idea that I agree with. And even though I can't stand the guy and how he's operating and running for president, because he clearly is, at the same time, I agree with him here. So I want to give him credit. However, here's the political cynicism that I have. Gavin Newsom, in the last several weeks, last couple months, I think it was a month ago, he went on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News. 2 weeks ago, he told Jen Psaki that on MSNBC that he watches Fox News all the time. And it's not because he's trying to understand or anything like that. He just wants to get a better scope and a broader picture of the American people and all of that sort of stuff. Gavin Newsom is clearly running for president, and as a person who's run political campaigns before, he wants to now, he has every interest in being a left-of-center bipartisan leader. He is not that, just for the record, by any stretch of the imagination. He is, I think, probably somewhat sensible, but understands that he has to play to the left wing of his party. However, in order to get elected president, you have to run to the middle. I know that Gavin has every incentive to run towards the middle and to work across the aisle with Republicans to pass common sense legislation. I agree with that, but also know that it is a political strategy that Gavin is employing to ingratiate himself to the people who think California has gone off the deep end, which it has. All that is to say, I don't know what the game plan is. On its face, it looks like some crazy extremist California Democrats said no to this law initially, or to this bill initially in committee, and said, well, the quote from one of the guys was, well, it's been proven that more criminalization doesn't help the problem, which is insane. That guy's just flat out wrong. But on its face, it looks like you have some crazy California Democrats who are left of freaking Che Guevara who are saying no to this bill. And it looks like Gavin says, well, no, this is like completely reasonable. It passed the Senate overwhelmingly controlled by Democrats without any sort of pause. This is a real legitimate thing. And so he revives it. That's how it looks like on its face. But the cynical side of me, which is like 90% of me, my cynical side and my everything will be okay side is like 90-10. The cynical side of me says, well, everybody knows Gavin Newsom's running for president. Everybody is aware that vacancies are going to fill up in the California Democrat bureaucracy. Everybody knows that they want to get a leg up in that bureaucracy, whether it be in California or in the White House, as they presume Gavin Newsom will win in 2024. I wonder if anyone is doing him any sorts of favors. In other words, some of the Democrats on the committee that knocked down this thoroughly reasonable bill, I would be curious, and you will never be able to find a paper trail for this, but I would be curious if some of them signaled to Gavin, hey, we'll kill this bill in committee and let you revive it to show that you're working across the aisle, because you have every incentive to do that. And especially on this particular bill that everybody agrees with. We will kill this bill so that you can come in and save the day and work hand in hand in a bipartisan manner with Republicans across the aisle to get this across the finish line. We'll do that for you if later on you help us out in some way, shape, or form. Now, again, there is no proof of this. I am just telling you, as a political tactician, that would not shock me or surprise me at all. If they knocked it down specifically so Gavin could come in and save the day and look like the bipartisan leader that America needs as he runs for president in 2024. That's all I'll say about that. But Gavin Newsom is totally running, and he's siding with Republicans on this particular issue. I agree with him. You shouldn't hit the dog in the nose who finally comes to you. And also, the cynical side of me thinks that this is some sort of greater play. And to think that that sort of stuff doesn't happen is naive. It's not a big, grandiose conspiracy theory, but people trade votes for offices so often that it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Let's see. That's that. I want to get to this because I think this is fascinating to me. Turning Point USA, of which I am a contributor there, and great friends over at Turning Point, had a big Turning Point Action Conference, which is the political arm of the nonprofit, in West Palm Beach over the weekend. I did not attend because thankfully Charlie Kirk is understanding that my wife might give birth any day now, and being across the country is probably not the best place for me. So I appreciate them giving me the time off. Nevertheless, had a fantastic conference over there in West Palm Beach. And I thought this was fascinating. This is political horse race. This is the horse race for president, and I understand the. Sometimes people are interested in this, sometimes they're not. They're more interested in policy, they're more interested in the news and all that sort of stuff. But Turning Point Action did a straw poll. Now, the beginning of this video that I'm about to show you is not surprising. The winner of the straw poll was probably exactly who you think it is. But the second place finisher now, as long as we're being fair, and I think everybody, all of my friends over at Turning Point would probably agree, this is conservative America. This is the conservative hub. Outside of this hub at Turning Point, people will either get less involved, less engaged, a little bit more wishy-washy on the conservative side allow. This is like the pinnacle of conservatism in America. So I get that. They have, that may be a different opinion than kind of your tangentially paying attention voter in, wherever America. So I understand. But of the most conservative people in the country taking this straw poll at the Turning Point Action Summit conference, check out who came in second place when it comes to running for president. Watch this.
So, the straw poll results, and there's a lot of detail to this, I'll tell you, but I don't think it's a huge surprise. But the winner of the straw poll with 85%, Donald J. Trump, is the winner of the Turning Point Action straw poll. But the interesting question is, who won? If not Trump, who would your next choice be? And the conventional wisdom would be, well, it would be the governor of Florida or Nikki Haley or Mike Pence. In the second place, if not, or who would you choose as your second choice? With 50%, Vivek Ramaswamy. That is pretty amazing, isn't it? And so the two big winners, Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy, at 50% of you said Trump won, Vivek too. That's really interesting.
It is, right? And I think Charlie goes on to say, look at how far he's come in just a short period of time. Vivek Ramaswamy is super impressive. Now, you may be a Trump person, you may be a DeSantis person, you may want experience in the executive branch of government, which Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis both have. But Vivek Ramaswamy, one, has run a bunch of companies, so I am so much more pro a business guy coming out of the private sector into the public sector, just because they just know how to do stuff. But regardless, again, whether or not you're a Trump person, DeSantis person, Vivek Ramaswamy is insanely impressive. The guy knows how to articulate a point so well and be sophisticated but also simple and explain things in a way that really nobody else in the field, I think, can do quite as well. Of course, name recognition is a difficult thing in this game. He's got a difficult name, and as a guy who has a difficult name, I can sympathize with that. But Vivek Ramaswamy, in the heart of conservative America, coming in second place with 50% of the vote is dang impressive. So there's that. Do with that information what you will. Another guy running for president is Asa Hutchinson, who is a governor of a state that I forget where he is from specifically, and this was the reception that he got at the Turning Point Action Summit. Watch this.
being engaged in the political arena and fighting for the conservative cause. Young people, you are leading the charge that's ahead. I just finished 8 years as governor of Arkansas, and I was happy to be able to say.
Yeah, you don't need to listen to more of that. It goes on for quite a bit, but his entire speech, Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, was not well received by the Turning Point people. In other words, he got booed constantly, which is no surprise. I am not entirely sure why he is thinking that this is a good idea. To kind of top off with the Vivek stuff, Jim says, a business person is why I voted for Trump. Yeah, again, you want to talk, what is the executive branch of the American federal government? It is a business in effect, and not a business in terms of turning a profit, but in terms of organizing and handling different departments and hiring the right people in order to do the job that you're tasked with doing by Congress. Maybe we'll do a big, long thing about how the country is supposed to work, because if it works in the way it's supposed to work, the president of the United States should effectively just be a CEO enacting the rules put forth by Congress, which is not how the country works at the moment, but it's how it should be. Maybe we'll go into that a little bit more, do our own kind of version of what's it called? Schoolhouse Rock, explaining all that sort of stuff. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in on this Monday. Really curious about the COVID stuff. Shoot me a comment or message if you have any thoughts about if you have an experience with the business stuff on COVID policy still being around. You can message me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Getter, Truth Social. What are the other ones? Rumble, streaming on Rumble now. But any of them, I cannot promise I'm going to get to them all, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see if any of the COVID policies that are still in place are affecting you or your business or anybody that you know, especially now knowing that there's still no work requirement for food stamps, which blows my mind. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. Let's see. Yeah, two big birthdays in my life over the weekend. So my dad's birthday was yesterday, and my father-in-law's birthday is tomorrow. So happy birthday to both those guys. Yeah. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.